Hello everyone, this is Aussie's Elect, and today I am doing a video about what I believe will be the issues dominating the next Australian federal election. And what you can see here is the political parties and what their stances are on these issues. At the moment, the Liberals and the Nationals mostly have the same stances on everything simply because they are a coalition and they are seemingly trying to make a one unified stance on a lot of these issues. I mean, that might be very different by the time the next election comes around, especially if we get some kind of like weird like party split or something like that. But I thought I'd put them on here just so I can sort of talk about them. But red is indicating that the party is against this issue. Green is that they're for this issue, and then yellow is undecided. They haven't made up their mind yet. And then there are some ones here where I just actually don't really know. Maybe I could have done a little bit more research, but I just wanted to sort of get this video out here because there's a lot I want to talk about. So also what I've got over here is a salience rating. And that's just basically me saying how important I think each issue is going to be at the election. Some of these are not going to be very important. All right, so without any more further ado, let's get on to the issues. So the first one is reforming the capital gains tax discount. I'm guessing that Labor Party don't want to do this right now, but it is going to be an issue that, whether the Labor Party like it or not, will be key to the next federal election, because I do believe the next federal election is going to be about three topics, which is housing, immigration, and energy. And this policy here, the CGT discount, a lot of economists have pointed to basically this policy needing to be touched with if we are going to see changes to housing affordability. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to housing policy in Australia and what exactly we want out of housing policy. Do we want a housing market downturn or not? But I think the Labor Party probably will be pushed by the end of this term into having a different position on the capital gains tax discount. And I think that this is obviously something the Liberals and Nationals will fight them on, and same as One Nation, because One Nation believe that the core issue here is immigration, not tax settings. The next one is reforming negative gearing. Pretty much the same thing as the capital gains tax discount, but I put this on a 9 because I think that there's a chance that the Labor Party might decide to touch the CGT discount but leave negative gearing completely alone. I think negative gearing is a bit more contentious than the CGT discount, mostly because renters think it's going to affect them if negative gearing gets touched. Again, the Liberals, Nationals, this would be the one thing where I can't see them ever changing their mind on this. In fact, if the Liberals stay moderate this term, I think this is the one thing they'll be using to differentiate themselves between Labor and themselves. They'll say, we're not going to mess with tax settings. Whether that's a good strategy or not, that's up to your own opinion. But the Liberals and One Nation and Nationals, the one thing that they're not going to change their position on. The next one is interesting, NIMBY. So this is specifically referring to housing. I'm not talking about like public transport or something like that at the moment. And I put Greens as NIMBY. That's sort of a controversial answer because the Greens do like to paint themselves as YIMBY, but they definitely have gained themselves a bit of a NIMBY image lately. I think local councils, especially from the Greens, have not helped that image, where a lot of Green local councillors have said this housing development is unsustainable, it's going to ruin the character of the neighbourhood, it's going to ruin heritage buildings in the neighbourhood, blah, 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 blah. And so the Greens, whether they like it or not, whether they actually are NIMBY or not, have painted themselves this NIMBY green. As for the Liberals, Nationals, and One Nation, this is sort of another thing where I'm not really sure how they want to position themselves on the issue. It's clear that the Liberals last election wanted to focus more on quote unquote greenfield development, which is like development in the outer suburbs, which I don't think people who live on the outer suburbs are too keen about, because they don't want more development in areas which they believe already has a lack of infrastructure, a lack of public transport. So I think actually that might have backfired on Peter Dutton, him having a approach where places in the inner cities or places that rich people live saying no to more development. I made like a little poll and I said that if the Liberals move conservative, they would be more NIMBY. And Anglo Election Insight sort of questioned that. And I can understand why, because if they want to win back teal seats, then you would think that they would also try to be NIMBY, because in teal seats, you get a lot of NIMBYs in those kind of seats, like places like Wentworth and Warringah and Bradfield, Mackellar. That's like sort of NIMBY heartland. So you would think like the Liberals would, if they were staying moderate under Susan Ley, target those NIMBY voters as well. But the reason that I said that the Conservatives would be NIMBY is because they would simply blame the housing crisis on immigration, and they'll say it's all immigration. You know what the playbook is. So I was thinking that the Liberal Party will have to have some answer to the housing crisis, right? If they stay moderate, right? If they're not going to blame immigration, if they're not going to say that tax changes will change the housing crisis, if they're going to resist development in these areas that Labor want to develop, like what's their answer to the housing crisis at the end of the day? Are they just going to say like cut red tape, cut green tape? I don't know. Let's move on. Build public housing. So this is obviously one that the Greens are very strong on. The Labor Party sort of talked. I know there was like building of like 100,000 new homes for first home buyers, but like, is there like a really extensive sort of goal from the Labor Party to build public housing? No, they've been talking about social and affordable housing for years. I mean, I guess I could make this yellow. Like they could end up changing their tune and just going straight forward and building public housing, but they've really been trying to sort of get the private sector to do those things, at least in their first term. That's what made the Greens angry at them about housing policy, as well as them refusing to touch these tax policies. But the Liberals and Nationals, they very much don't think that this issue should be solved by the government. And I believe One Nation feels the same way too. As for rents or caps or freezes, this is something that the Greens are probably going to be full in support of. They were in support of it last election, and I think a lot of Greens voters think that like it's a vote winner. They think like it makes like common sense to voters or something like that. The Labor Party, I don't think are going to do this one because it just seems like too much sort of interference with the market. And of course, these conservative parties won't touch that policy either. And then we have super withdrawal to buy a home. This is obviously a very controversial policy that the coalition did last election, but it might be again one of their only options for helping people with housing affordability next election. So they might go back to this one again, but I doubt it's something that the Labour Party or the Greens would be in favour of, given I feel like it actually helped them probably a bit last election, and then One Nation, yeah, I don't know about them. So let's move on to energy, which I think will be the third most important issue at the election, simply because energy prices are high, and obviously there's the talk of businesses failing because of energy prices, blah 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 blah. And it was so contentious last election, and obviously is so contentious within the coalition right now that it's just obvious that energy plays a major role in the Australian political debating sphere. So ending the ban on nuclear. So this is one that Liberals Nationals are very supportive of. They've kept this policy around. It was contingent on the Nationals rejoining the coalition with the Liberals. So they might not actually invest in government owned nuclear power plants. I don't actually have this on here just because I think probably that policy is maybe a bit too contentious to actually happen. But they definitely both support getting rid of the ban on nuclear, and it's sort of like a little bit of a no-brainer in my opinion that they can just go to an election and go like, why have this ban if we can put in like the environmental safeguards and we don't have to spend any public money on it. So obviously One Nation is full in support of this policy, has been for a while, and the Greens and Labor are very against it. I don't see them changing their mind anytime soon. Next is support net zero by 2050. Obviously Labor and the Greens big in support, One Nation firmly against. Liberal Party at the moment is in support of the National Party. They might be coming around in the next couple of days, in fact. In fact, by the time I get this video out, they might have already made a decision that they're going to scrap this policy. And I don't really know what this means for the coalition. It's going to cause a lot of issues. So yes, while I was editing this video, the Nationals have officially dumped net zero, and it looks like the Liberals under Susan Ley might decide to dump it too. But at the moment, they have a contradicting coalition platform. And yeah, as we can see here, Liberals seek unity on net zero, but Fair Nationals would, yeah, they've already dumped it. So I guess we'll see if the Liberals decide to join with the Nationals on this policy or not. And it might be a reason that the Liberals decide to change leadership. It's a pretty important target. And And a lot of policy is made up specifically around keeping this target or not. So I think they really do have to have a consensus here. And if the Nationals are saying no to this, I don't know how they can really work together that well in the kind of coalition that they've been doing for the past X how many years. I don't know how long they've actually been in coalition for. I heard they like broke up in the 80s or something for a while, so I don't know. But yeah, very, very contentious policy. And obviously, we might be seeing some news about that in the next couple of days. Then we've got subsidizing new coal plants. So I don't think the Liberals and Nationals are going to be supporting this policy. I put it on yellow just because maybe they might go like fully conservative and say like, yeah, let's give public money to coal-fired power plants now or something. This really could be new nuclear plants too. Like it's really basically the same colors, I'd say. Like the Labour Party is leaving coal plants open for longer, and I think is maybe bailing them out in some states. But in terms of subsidizing new coal plants, I don't think the Labour Party is going to do that, and the Greens obviously are not in support of that. But I think One Nation, or at least One Nation voters, think that it is a good investment to give public money to get quote unquote cheaper energy by subsidizing new coal fired power plants. So, yeah, I don't think the coalition will do this one because they're meant to be the hands out of the economy party, except for when it came to nuclear, interestingly. But I guess that was different because they thought that that was the only way to get that industry off the ground in Australia, or at least that was the rhetoric at the time. Anyway, no future coal and gas projects. So obviously the Greens are the only one who are on board here. And I think this policy is sort of like a vote winner for them, but also sort of a bit of a vote loser for them. I think it comes round that people ask, like, well, doesn't coal and gas give Australia a lot of revenue? And the Greens kind of go, well, no, we don't really need it. And mining sites that the government is approving are going to be open until like the 2060s and are only economically viable if they stay open until the 2060s and 70s. So, if they're approving them, what do they say about their net zero targets? Like all of those questions, I mean, they're fair in terms of like what's a good sort of political look when we have high energy prices and we have a deficit problem, then yeah, the Labour Party are not going to change their stance on this. And this will be the one thing that the Greens will hold onto until they die because it's literally in their blood to have a policy like this. Next one is the renewables or battery push. So the Labour Party going very hard on subsidies for renewables, batteries. Greens obviously in favour. One Nation think this kind of energy is a bunch of woke green nonsense. It's all virtue signalling, or it's all funding like these elite companies who control the media and all this stuff. Blah blah blah. As for the coalition, whether they're going to support a lot of the investments that the Labour Party is going into these things, I think it really just depends if the Liberals stay moderate or go conservative. If they go conservative, they'll completely ditch this. If they stay moderate, they might move to a policy position that is a bit more similar to the Labour Party, but they'll try to find differences. So moving on to general taxation and economy. So superannuation tax reform, obviously Labour came out and sort of moderated their policy recently. I don't exactly know why they did that when they took the previous super tax policy to the last election and they obviously won that election massively. Maybe they thought that people didn't know about it enough. Maybe they just thought that it wasn't that great. Maybe they had too many lobbyists tapping them on the shoulder. I don't really know. But regardless, they are bringing in this weaker tax reform, and I don't believe that the coalition are supporting it. And I don't think One Nation would support it either. And the Greens, obviously, big in support, although they would wish that the Labour Party went much further, of course. Mining tax. I highly doubt the Labour Party is going to go back to something like this. It seems that Labour, especially, are pushing big subsidies into green mining, in inverted commas, like making batteries and stuff like that. And then also like rare earth mineral, just everything that isn't sort of highly polluting, like coal and gas. They're saying, okay, well, this is good mining. So I don't think that they're going to do some kind of like specific tax on coal or gas. Obviously, the Greens big in support, and everyone else is like is no. And yeah, the Liberal National, I might as well paint this dark red. They're never going to support anything like this. The OG Stage 3 tax cuts. So I think the coalition recently signaled that they're going to revisit what Scott Morrison's original Stage 3 tax cuts would have looked like for the next election. I think they said something like that. Obviously, the Labour Party won't be supporting this. They got away scot-free with changing that last term. Greens will not be supporting this. One Nation, I don't really know what their position is on this. Tax cuts won the coalition an election in 2019. It seems to be sort of their Achilles heels, offering personal income tax. And there is a mood at the moment that everyone, literally everyone, including people on the left, want to tax less of personal income and tax more of assets. And of course, the coalition are not going to tax more of assets, but they'll try to find a way that they can afford some sort of serious personal income tax, I would think. But we don't know yet. I thought Peter Dutton would do something like that. He didn't come up with anything. So moving on, wealth tax. This has become more popular in the Anglosphere as of late. I don't know about other sort of Western countries, but I know in the UK it's been talked about. In New Zealand it's been talked about. Of course, it's been talked about in America. The Greens, big in support of wealth tax. Everyone know, and I didn't even put a death tax on here because it would be the same as wealth tax, except even more controversial. I don't think the Labour Party are interested in taxing wealth at the moment. This is a harder sell than doing something with the housing tax concessions. So I don't think they'll go anywhere near taxing wealth at the moment. I mean, maybe if the Labour Party sticks around for a couple more terms, and obviously everyone else is a no to that. Supermarket divestiture powers. So the Labour Party poo-pooed this idea because they thought that criminalizing price gouging would be enough, or they already did something like this, or something. I don't know, some crap where Albo said they didn't need to do this, while everyone else is like, yay. I think One Nation is in support. I'm not sure though. But this was another edition of the reforming of the coalition for the Liberals. And the Greens support this. They support any intervention in the market that would reduce the controlling hand of Coles and Woolworths. I don't know when this price gouging stuff is going to happen or what it's going to look like, but Labor apparently doing that this term. Baby bonus. So this one's completely red for everyone, and I've also put this on 0. I think it would be a good policy. I think it would be an important policy because our fertility rate is dropping very quickly, and no amount of money put into childcare is going to save it. I also think childcare is a little bit overrated as well, but I'm not going to get into that on this video. But generally, good policy, and it doesn't seem like anyone's going to be interested in touching it. Actually, maybe the Liberals and Nationals will bring this one back. I don't know. I could change this to a yellow because obviously it was very popular with Peter Costello, I'm pretty sure, when he brought this in. Didn't save the Howard government in 2007, though, but maybe they'll try to get some nostalgia by bringing in a policy like this. So I'll change that to yellow. Maybe the salience rating should be higher too. Increasing job seeker. So the Labour Party haven't sort of signaled they're really that interested in doing this. Whenever this is brought up, they talk about the budget and there's just not enough room in the budget and blah, blah, blah. And we've got a deficit, blah, blah, blah. Liberals, Nationals obviously hate dole bludgers, so they're not going to do anything there. One Nation, maybe they'll go a little bit populist and they'll say that we want to increase job seeker, but it has to go on a card or something like that. And then obviously the Greens are full in support of this one. I don't think it's going to have much salience simply because I think people really don't care that much about unemployed people, and most unemployed people already vote 1 Greens, 2 Labour, or the other way around.
And I doubt that those kind of people are going to be changing the way they vote anytime soon.
So it's not the kind of issue that would win the coalition or Labour in elections. That's just welfare card. So Liberals and Nationals really hated that Labour got rid of this last election. They said, bring it back, bring it back. I don't know how they're going to approach this next election again. It might be down to if there's a moderate or a conservative in the leadership team, but the Labour Party got rid of this, won a subsequent election very easily. So I don't think they'll be bringing it back, even though there is something that exists that's sort of similar, people have said. But in the form that the Liberal Party had it, it's not coming back. Greens obviously not in support, and One Nation love this shit. Dental in Medicare. The Greens campaign on this big last election. I had a friend who thought that if Albo promised dental in Medicare, he would win the election in a landslide. I mean, he did end up winning the election in a landslide without doing that, but maybe he would have won the election more in a landslide or something. But it didn't seem to help Adam Bandt carrying around that massive toothbrush. And I do think it's a good policy. Maybe they left it too late, but I doubt that the Greens will be scrapping this one and they will be pushing Labour to do it. But I don't think that the Labour Party will be focusing on offering something like that this term when housing is a way more critical issue to deal with. And Liberals, Nationals just don't think it's worth it, and same as One Nation. You know, they just say only rich people can have good teeth. Next one, recognise Palestine. Obviously, Labour and the Greens have already kind of teamed up and did that. We all know the coalition and One Nation are huge Zionists, and they're not going to change their mind on this. Doesn't matter how quote unquote moderate the person in the leadership team is. So yeah, that's not going to happen. But I doubt it's going to have much impact on the next election. I don't know what Israel is going to get up to in the next couple of years, but I would have thought that probably this issue would have less salience in the next election than in the previous one. And even in that one, those Gaza independents, I think they even failed to make the two candidate preferred. So, yeah, a bit of a womp womp there. Wary of China. So I put red for Labour here, and you could argue they are kind of wary of China. That's why they're doing AUKUS. But in terms of saying that we need to prepare for war and kind of rhetoric that Peter Dutton has, and even Scott Morrison had as well, Labour Party really are trying to be pretty friendly with China, have a decent relationship with China. Liberals and Nationals, I think, again, depends if we have a moderate or conservative. Conservatives really love fear mongering about China. So even if it really damages their prospects with the Chinese vote, moderates obviously know that it's really politically toxic to go after China for just for the sake of going after China. So yeah, not sure how the coalition will be on this one. And obviously, the One Nation thinks China are the number one threat to Australia, and the Greens are perfectly happy to trade with China, and they also want to ditch AUKUS, which everyone except for the Greens is going to support, and it doesn't look like that position is changing anytime soon, as the Labour Party won an election full in support of AUKUS despite Donald Trump's shenanigans this year. I mean, by the time of the next election, probably Donald Trump would have done a lot more things to piss people off, so maybe it will have more impact. But I think Albanese is sort of in too deep now to sort of change his mind on AUKUS unless Donald Trump does something like completely horrendous. So yeah, fully in support of that deal, except for the Greens. Okay, so low immigration. I mean, I might as well put this one on like a 20 when it comes to salience rating because I do think this is going to be a huge issue next election, unless something happens that makes these housing issues more of a salient issue, as in the Labour Party offers them at the election or has already introduced them, which I doubt will happen. I think they'll probably, if they're going to do these policies, they're going to take it to an election. But yeah, low immigration. Liberals and Nationals sort of haven't made their mind up about what they want to do here. They think probably that their sort of anti-immigration rhetoric cost them at the election. So Susan Ley, I've seen like some Twitter posts from the official Liberal Party, which have attacked Labor for out of control immigration has caused the housing crisis and stuff like that. But I haven't actually seen Susan Ley herself really go after this policy. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But obviously, if we get a conservative in charge of the Liberal Party, this is going to be huge for them. One Nation, the only real reason that they're surging, I mean, maybe it's something to do with net zero, but I think the main reason they're surging at the moment is because of immigration. Obviously, the Greens aren't going to change their mind on this. Labour, I highly doubt they're going to change their mind. They're committing to trying to lower immigration at the moment. It's not really working to, I think, the degree that they would have liked. But at the same time, I think they know that it's the only real thing keeping economic growth going, so they're going to continue with it. But yeah, huge issue. But if Labour takes those housing policies to the election, I think that it's probably more likely the Liberals will stay moderate. They won't talk too much about immigration. They're just going to go hard opposing housing tax policies instead. But if the Labour Party don't do anything with these housing tax policies, that's when a Conservative will come in and go immigration, 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 and then Albo will just keep on going supply, 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 and it won't work. It might have worked in 2025, but if this issue keeps on getting worse, which it seemingly will, then it's not going to work again and again and again. Next one is offshore immigration. Oh, I think I put like four Fs or something there, but regardless, both turnbacks. This issue was dealt with 10 years ago. I don't see the Labour Party changing their mind on this anytime soon. Obviously, the Greens, this will be another thing that they'll always sort of use to differentiate themselves with the Labour Party. They think that the Labour Party is way too harsh on refugees, but everyone else supports this policy. Next one is cracking down on anti-Israel protests. So the Labour Party have already done this a little bit, and these guys are full in support. But the One Nation Party, I believe they might have like abstained on like this hate speech bill or something, and that drew ire from Jared Rennick. I think he was, why did you abstain from voting on this hate speech bill? He was criticizing them for not voting against it. I know it's different to this, but this is basically what it is. It's cracking down on anti-Israel protests. Obviously, the Greens are not too happy with this. Even if they support sort of some limits on quote unquote hate speech, they're not happy when it concerns. Actually, this one was kind of a mess. I apologize for this one, but I don't think it's going to have much salience in the next election anyway, because this whole drama with Israel Palestine is going away right now. Anyway, next one is under 16 social media bans. So I don't know how this is going to go down. This comes into effect in like 2 months. I don't know how this is going to go. Like, it could be a complete failure, and by the time the next election, it's not even on the radar anymore. They're just giving up on it. Obviously, the coalition and Labour support this at the moment. One Nation and the Greens don't. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue because, these people, they don't vote. There might be some people who have a chance to. No, I don't think they'll have a chance to vote at the next election if they are 16 when the ban comes in and then they turn 18. Maybe they can, I don't know. But, maybe a very small minority of people might have been hit by this policy and then get to vote and be angry at the Labour Party. Or maybe they'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm very happy that you took me off social media, and they'll vote for the Labour Party or the coalition. I don't know. I don't think this will be a big issue. Legalize marijuana, not going to be a big issue, although the Greens will always be pushing for it, and they do get a little bit of votes from that. One of the reasons why the legalized cannabis is able to win a seat without doing much campaigning at all in a lot of these state elections. So I don't think it's going to become a huge issue, but it's always sort of a minor issue in the back of every Australian election. Strengthen ICAC, obviously this will be something that the Greens will be pushing for. Maybe the Teals might be pushing for it to sort of stay relevant, say that they want like public hearings or something like that, and maybe someone will do something really corrupt. But that's sort of already happened already, and I don't know why I've given this a 5, but I think maybe corruption is always something that people worry about.
The longer the Labour Party's in government, the greater chance that
they might do something that's sort of corrupt. So, but yeah, these guys, they don't want to strengthen this because they are afraid of getting hit by it. Gambling reform. So this was something that we thought Labour would take to the last election. They were going to do something with like TV ads, and then they just sort of gave up. I don't exactly know what happened. They didn't even do like a minor policy, and it hasn't seemed to. It's sort of just gone away since the election. So yeah, the Liberals and Nationals don't really want to touch this, as far as I know. Maybe if they take a really moderate stance, but Labor haven't really heard much from this. Maybe it'll be dealt with before the election. Maybe it'll just be completely memory hold by the time of the next election. AI policy, big sort of question mark. I haven't heard anything from Pollies at the moment. Obviously, AI is developing in a very, very fast rate at the moment. And by the time of the next election, maybe it will have some significant salience on what we want to do about it. Very scary. There's like a billion YouTube videos talking about threat of AI, so I'm not going to go on about it here. I also like AI. I'm also just a bit scared of it too. Fuel efficiency standards. So this was like the U tax and stuff like this, and I don't think the Liberals and Nationals would support this. I guess the question is like, how hard are they going to campaign on it? It's going to be a while since it's introduced by the time that the next election comes, and this will be something that One Nation won't support, and the Greens are fully on board with, of course. Road user charge. Dumb policy. I'm going to make a video on this policy. I know I've been meaning to for a while. I keep on sort of forgetting. All the major parties seem to be supportive of this. I think One Nation would be supportive of it too because they don't really like electric cars. And the Greens, I don't think they support this policy because they want to sort of increase investment in electric cars, and a lot of their base is like rich electric car driving people. So as much as they like taxation, this is one taxation I don't think they're too much of a fan of. Next one is hold fixed 4-year terms referendum. I'm not sure what the Greens and One Nation's opinion is on this one, and I think the Liberals and Nationals are generally supportive. I've heard a billion times that the Labour Party want to do this. I think this will get voted down. I don't think this will succeed. And I think it would be another humiliation for them if they go to it and they lose. So some people talk about like this referendum holding it like simultaneously with the next election or something like that. Maybe they'll do that. I don't know, but I'm not a fan of this policy, so that's all I'm going to say about that. Increase the size of Parliament. I don't know if Labor is going to do this term or next term. I think it's definitely on their radar. I think the Greens and One Nation will probably be supportive because it would give them a little bit more representation. The Greens in the lower house and One Nation in both houses. Liberals and Nationals, I think they've said that they don't want more politicians. They're not going to support this, but it would help them in the House of Representatives, as I showed you guys in the last video. Probably help them in the House of Representatives. I'm not going to say it's definitely going to help them, but mathematically it will probably help them. Lower voting age to 16. I think this is the only thing the Greens will be touching on. I don't think the Labour Party will follow suit with the UK Labour Party, but they might surprise me. And these guys hate it when young people vote because it means probably not voting for them. And then the last one is right to disconnect. There probably is more sort of contentious IR laws on the agenda, but I just don't know about them. But obviously the Labour Party will be fully in support. I don't know why I put red for the Greens. That's a bit bizarre. I don't know why I did that. But Liberals and Nationals, this is something, again, they'll need to sort of come to terms with. whether or not they want to repeal this legislation by the time of the next election. I don't think they will. I think they see that they'll look like the bad guys if they try to change this kind of legislation. And then One Nation, I'm not actually too sure what their position is. So that's this. I might do another video similar to this later on if the parties especially sort of change their mind on issues, or if I'm like wrong about some of these issues. I'm probably wrong about a bunch of these, but it's still sort of interesting to talk about, and I'd like to hear your feedback, of course. Tell me when I was wrong. Tell me with these yellows how you think parties will go. We all know One Nation is just sort of an embezzling scheme for Pauline Hanson, but they do sometimes actually take a stand on political issues, as you're supposed to do as a political party. And I think it is getting to a point, though, that if the Labour Party doesn't write a policy on the capital gains tax discount by the next election, it's actually going to be possibly more contentious than actually doing something about it. So, I mean, I believe the crisis is that bad. A lot of people seem to not think it's that bad, but I think the housing crisis is getting that bad. And it is the big thing that's contributing to this becoming such a salient issue to the point where I could put this on like 20 and it would seem reasonable. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye.